We all have loud thoughts, so many of them. The anxious ones, the sad ones, the angry ones, the ones that keep us stuck, small, and playing it safe. And then there are quieter ones, underneath it all. The one that nudges you, the one that knows. I'm Christina, a clairaudient angel messenger and angel Reiki master teacher. I hear the angels speaking to me in my own voice, and I'm here to help you do the inner work to hear yours. This is Awakening to Your Soul Self. Grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's cross the bridge together. Please note, I am not a licensed therapist, counselor, or medical professional. Everything shared on this show comes from personal experience and spiritual guidance. If anything resonates deeply and you feel you need additional support, please reach out to a qualified professional. Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I'm excited to have this episode. I've been talking to this person on and off for a couple weeks on Instagram and Facebook, and I just felt like she was a great fit for the podcast. Welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and share your spiritual awakening if you have one? I think that everybody's journey is special and unique and resonates with people here and there. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Christina, for having me. It was so lovely. It was so easy connecting with you. I just want to say that, I was just looking for podcast guesting, and you were like the first one that popped up. So, and our connection was so seamless and easy. So I think maybe that was a sign that this was just meant to be, you know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
So why don't
But yeah,
you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Niyati, and I am a certified life coach as well as a blogger. And right now, I'm just kind of helping people with my main work and mission is to help women who are stuck in patterns of people pleasing as well as self-abandonment to finally return home to themselves, their own power, and who they really are. So that's kind of like a gist of my work and what I do. As well as, of course, build self-trust, which is all just part of the process. And I guess kind of what we'll be talking about a little bit about today. You also asked me about my spiritual awakening journey. This is a bit of a long story. I did have a spiritual awakening. I think almost everyone who's kind of on this work or journey tends to have one in my experience. I think for me, it started about in 2018, 2019. I was in undergrad, I was in university. So I'm from Toronto, Canada, and so I was studying university, probably like first, second year. I think sometimes a lot of spiritual awakening journeys start off where everything is going great, then something suddenly just doesn't. And I think that was kind of true for me as well, where I was doing really well in school. I got everything that I wanted. I had everything that I wanted. Yet there was this silent and quiet feeling of dissatisfaction and emptiness within me that just started to slowly creep up. And I think that was because even though I had achieved everything that I wanted, or I know I was getting amazing marks, I'd
Yep.
gotten all the achievements, there was like this loneliness and feeling emptiness within me. And I think part of that did stem from not feeling super connected to people around me, but I think part of that was also because I was so disconnected from myself. I think that was also part of it. Really, the journey was I started to feel extremely anxious from that point on. I remember I started visiting a career counselor because the anxiety was initially about my career,
Right.
which then kind of turned a little more existential and a little more personal. I remember the anxiety had just built up so much that it finally led to the dark night of the soul. This was one of the toughest points, I think, for me because everything that I think I had ever buried within me finally came up to my subconscious. I think I was very unaware, like before my spiritual awakening, I was someone that was extremely unaware. I was just living life on autopilot, doing whatever people wanted me to do. And then I went through this sudden intense experience where I started seeing angel numbers everywhere, 1111. All my, I think, intuition just opened up very rapidly. At the same time, everything that was buried in my subconscious mind, including deep feelings, emotions, traumas, everything just kind of came up to the surface to be processed. And it was tough because what looked like depression and anxiety on the outside was really this all this stuff coming up to be processed, and as a result, my body just didn't have the capacity to hold it. So it looked
Yeah.
like anxiety when really it was a lot of stuff coming up to be healed and processed. So I think like my dark night of the soul, the way that I see it is lasted about 4 months, where I was like
Yeah.
just in this really horrible period of just crying and being triggered all the time. And then I think all of a sudden, as I ironically, talking about the topic, I actually learned to trust and surrender into the universe, because
Yeah.
there was yes, all this stuff was happening where my intuition was coming online and I was seeing angel numbers, but a part of me, like especially my mind, was still in doubt. I was like, is any of
Yep.
this even really real? Like, what if I'm just making all this up, right? And so everything was just, there was so much. But I think the moment that I finally learned to kind of trust and surrender and just kind of, I don't think would fully say that I surrendered. I think I was more that I gave up. But I
Mm,
think
okay.
maybe there was an element of just like surrendering and kind of learning to trust that, okay, like it'll kind of subside. It did. And so and then after that, I think I really started my healing journey where I got deeper into this work. I started working with a therapist. I started going deeper into healing, learning various like healing techniques. I came
Yeah.
across subconscious reprogramming, EFT tapping, inner child work, somatic work, nervous system healing, you name it. I've done it all. Subconscious reprogramming. I started to journal a lot, and I think I went through all of that, all of the healing journey. And then slowly, it kind of drew me towards blogging. So I started writing. Like I just had the insight of one day just starting a blog, and I didn't even know what
Yeah.
it was. And I started it. And then I had the insight of kind of, I was feeling pulled towards this life coaching path, which again, I had never heard of, no idea what it was.
Yeah.
But then there was a certification program from like Mind Valley, without thinking much about it. I think I just kind of like I think I thought about it, but I felt really pulled towards it. So I signed up,
Yeah.
I did it, and I was like, oh my God, this is perfect for me. This is who I am. It really clicked with me. It was almost effortless for me as well, even though I didn't have a lot of coaching experience really. I found
Yeah.
that I was actually able to help people. Not that I'm like perfect or great at it, but like I feel like I'm pretty good at it, even though with little experience. And so it really resonated with me. From there on, I kind of got into this path, and now I feel like I'm at the stage where I'm being called to serve and help other people. So I think that kind of sums up my long spiritual awakening story.
That's a beautiful. I don't know if I ever told you my spiritual journey.
No, I
Um,
would love to hear.
I've always been spiritual. I've always watched like the medium shows, and I'm like, I wish I could do that. And then COVID happened, and I had really, really bad anxiety due to COVID. And then we finally like went back in 2022 to the full normal. And I remember coming home, and I kept looking up in the sky and being like, God, universe, source, like I feel like I love what I do. I do tech support for a school district, but I don't feel like that's my higher purpose. Like, what is my purpose? So I kept asking that for months. And then I was spring cleaning. And then I kept hearing, go turn on a podcast, like with my own voice. And I'm like, why the heck would I put on a podcast? Like, I'm a music girl. Like, I don't like to be in the silence. Like, give me some music. But I kept hearing it. So I went to go play a
Mhm.
podcast. And I think I searched like angels or spirit or something. And then I was hooked. And then, like, intuition, just like all the angel numbers started coming and everything happened. And I even joined, her name is Julie Jancis. She teaches Angel Reiki, which I'm certified in. I kind of had the same scenarios. You're like, why would I do that? Like, I don't do things for myself. But I had this knowing, like, I had to do the certification. So I went and did it. So it's so
Wow.
funny how our stories kind of align.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's so cool.
So I have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
So you said you work with women. They could be intuitive or sensitive, even self-aware, maybe not. I think every person's got their own season of life. What does it kind of look like when somebody's stuck? And especially I've been the people-pleasing person. I've worked
Mhm.
with my angels to kind of stop doing that because I'm not helping anybody but myself. So how do you help people with self people pleasing or any of your maybe more relevant topics for your coaching. If you're ready to start quieting the loud thoughts and connecting with your soul self, I have a free gift for you. My Home on the Other Side meditation is available right now at ChristinaAngelMessenger.com. It's my way of helping you begin your journey. The link is in the show notes.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to people pleasing, it looks a lot like I think saying yes when you want to say no.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people can resonate with. But I think it also looks like, I will say, like, from my experience, it wasn't always saying yes, but it was quietly fearing disappointment. It was quietly fearing disappointing other people, not disappointing myself, disappointing other people. It looked like quietly being afraid that someone wouldn't approve of something. And I think all of these things, there, some of these, like saying yes when you want to say no, is really an obvious form of people pleasing, but some of these other fears are a little bit quieter and they kind of run in the background and sometimes you're not always aware of them. I think these are some ways that we people please. And I think again, like people pleasing is also just a form of self-abandonment, right? And I think
I never thought of
um
it that way.
yeah, like it definitely, because every time that you say yes when you really want to say no, you're neglecting your own needs. You're neglecting yourself. So it's definitely a form of self-abandonment. And I think people pleasing to a certain degree, even in a way, it serves us, right? Like it's not wrong. It serves us. Our brains are wired for survival. And belonging is a huge part of survival. And so it's natural for your brain to want to belong because belonging meant survival, right? Especially in our
Yeah.
hunter-gatherer era, like belonging with people really meant survival. I think that it comes from a very survival type of place, but I think, or like a very good intention from the brain to help keep you alive and safe. But I think that we now live in a society where if someone doesn't approve of you or someone doesn't or maybe like someone's disappointed in you, it doesn't
Mhm.
actually equate to danger or threat, right? Like you're still okay. You're still safe if you disappoint someone. You're still okay if someone doesn't approve of you. And you're okay if you say no to someone. It's not dangerous to say no to someone. But I think somewhere our brains have still equated that with danger and maybe like lack of safety, right? And so maybe that's why I think that a lot of people that are stuck in that pattern are somewhere stuck in survival mode, somewhere stuck in a dysregulated nervous system, right? On some level, because I think if you're in that pattern, and so I think the way out of it is really to get out of that autopilot mode. First step, it really requires what I call, so there's this lovely distinction that I love talking about, which I distinguish between intellectual awareness versus embodied awareness. So a lot of the
Okay.
people that I work with, a lot of the women, they're very intellectually self-aware, right? And this is what I mean. I think a lot of people are intellectually self-aware, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone's aware about mental health, everyone's aware about various issues in the world, everyone's so-called self-aware. But I think that intellectual self-awareness is very surface level, meaning that you can be aware, yes, I'm a people pleaser. Yes, sometimes I neglect my own needs. But I think a lot of people lack embodied awareness. And I think embodied awareness is where real change and transformation happens. And what I mean by embodied awareness is intellectual awareness is cognitively knowing something about yourself. So I know this is what I do. Embodied awareness is when you become a witness to that behavior or when you're doing something in the moment. So let's say in the moment, when I'm about to say yes to that person, when I really want to say no, but I become aware of it, it's like this flash moment of almost like being the witness or just being able to notice this is what you're doing. And in that moment, it's almost like you're not that thought, you're not that emotion, you're observing
Mhm.
it. And when you're observing it, that's where your power is. Because that in that space, that
Yeah.
embodied awareness, that's where you can make a choice to do differently. Most often what happens is that we're operating on autopilot, so we can't make that change. And then we beat ourselves up. Oh my God. Like you realize something in hindsight, right? You're like, I
Hindsight
should have said
2020.
no here. Yeah, right. Like you're like, I should have said no here. I shouldn't have done this. But that's because you were operating still on autopilot, right? And I think to
Yeah.
get out of autopilot, what you really need is more presence. Because when you have more presence and you have more awareness, you're in a better position to actually notice something and make a change. I was actually just realizing this even today myself. So this is very, very fresh insights. I really do think that you need that embodied awareness to kind of step out of that zone so that then you can make that new choice. And once you do that and once you realize that, I think it becomes a lot easier because then it's not a matter of gaining a new insight. Then it's just a matter of
Mhm.
practice, right? Then it
Yeah.
just becomes, oh, I've done this before, I can do it again. So then it just becomes a repetitive practice. And then the more you do it, you start to rewire your brain and eventually you rewire your identity and now you're a new person.
Right.
Not a new
Yeah.
person, but just more of who you are,
More
less of
aligned to who you're
who you
used
were
to be.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I am a people pleaser. I'm working on it. But I have found that I take longer to respond when somebody asks me something.
Mm.
So my angels have been working with me on maybe take a day or two to like really feel, is that a yes or is that a no?
Mhm.
Because I would always instantly say yes.
Yeah, that's just like your
Um,
default pattern, right? Yeah.
for me, it was more especially in work
Mm.
life, where I would do things that are not part of my job description and get the same amount of money for it. And I recently changed jobs this year, and that was my one boundary that I was going to set was I'm going to say yes to everything. If it's in my scope of my description, yes, but if it's not, no. And I think that takes time to kind of relearn you're basically relearning yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, you're rewiring yourself to be
Mhm.
more aligned with your true self.
Yeah.
And we're in the society where everybody says yes to everything. And then you question and you compare yourself to saying, why did I do that? Or why can that person do that and I can't do that? There's a big societal part of all of this as well. I think
Yes.
if the world was a little bit more open to, I guess, not such hard societal lines, I feel like I think the world would be a little bit different, where especially with pleasing and the surrendering and coming back to your true self.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely do think societal change is happening, but obviously I think it'll obviously happen at a slower rate, but I think again it also depends on individual change, right? Like the
Yeah.
more that each individual transforms, the quicker society transforms. I think that a lot of things are changing, but I loved that you talked about comparison because I can relate so much to this. I find that I'm also someone that compares myself a lot, or lately I've been comparing myself a lot to
Yeah.
people. I think one thing that I've been realizing, just because like I'm not where I want to be, and so I think I've been
Yes.
comparing myself to other people around me because I'm feeling behind. I think one thing that I've also realized is just that everyone's path is different and unique. And I know we all know this and we all say this, but I think
Yeah.
one thing to really, again, know it intellectually versus really like understand it on a deeper level, which is just that, we think we want that thing, but then sometimes you really have to ask yourself, do you really want what that person has? Or do you just want it because of what it gives you, right? Or like maybe the validation or the prestige or the power, right? Actually, I think that kind of reminds me of even like my spiritual awakening story where really it was so I growing up I really wanted to be an astronaut. Yeah, I as a 7-year-old up until all the way up until university,
Wow.
I really wanted to be an astronaut. Yeah, and I think all my friends were sure that I would become one. But I think what the spiritual awakening really made me realize was that I didn't really want to be an astronaut, but it was more that I wanted the validation, the praise, and the admiration that went with being an astronaut, you know? And that's why I'm like now, like when I think about comparison, I'm like, well, do I really want what that person has, or do I want what I think it will give me? Which is, again, maybe that praise or admiration or validation, which I think are all very normal, but it's more like learning, like, okay, well, how can I give that to myself, or how can I focus on building a life that's meaningful and
Yeah.
purposeful to me, so that my life feels so good with where it is that I don't need to compare myself, or I don't need to feel like I need to have that to feel okay, because I'm building something that's a lot more true and authentic to myself.
Beautiful. The angels have been showing me is that you can't compare yourself to other because you don't know what step on the path they're on. So the
That's
way they've been showing it to me is you might be at level 1 or step 1, and they might be on step 20. You can't just jump to step 20. You have to get through 1 through 19 in order to get to step 20.
yeah,
Everybody's path is different. Path
yeah,
isn't a straight line. It's the way
no,
the angels have described it to me, it's kind of like a tree. So you have the tree trunk, which is your base, and then you have all the branches. All the branches are all the free will decisions you make within your life, but
mm,
it's all attached to the same trunk. And that trunk is your divine path. So
mm.
no matter what path you take, if you branch off, you always can come back to the divine path.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah,
So if, let's say we are doing the work, but let's say hypothetically for our listeners, how do we start to learn to trust ourselves, trust the universe, God, universe, source, whatever resonates with you? What's the first thing you would tell somebody? Because
yeah,
trust is hard.
it's a good question. It's definitely very hard, and I think it's even harder when you're not even aware that you lack self-trust, because, and I say this because I think I was always someone that actually wasn't even aware of the fact that I didn't trust myself. And I think it came through me more through a realization and reflection. I think first knowing and understanding and becoming aware is the first step, right? What are all signs of a lack of self trust? Let's start there. A sign of a lack of self trust is more things like overthinking. So you overthink decisions a lot. You self doubt, you self sabotage, procrastination sometimes, and especially prolonging making a decision. I think that's where a lack of self trust can show up a lot, constantly seeking other people's opinions, rather than trusting your own voice or your own intuition. And I definitely relate to all of these. I think I did a lot
Right.
of these, yeah, myself up until very recently. So yeah, I'm still, maybe I'm just one step ahead, but I think I'm still learning it as well. I think when you're constantly in a position of overthinking every decision that you make, or even just going out to other people or trying to find answers
Yeah.
external to you in any form or way, especially about decisions. I'm not talking about decisions that are more practical or pragmatic, but I'm talking about decisions that are very personal to you, right? Like,
Yeah.
where should you, like, what should you do in your life? What path should you take? Your purpose, your healing path. Now, obviously, like, it's great to consult a coach or someone like that, like a career coach or whatever. That's all fine, because again, they're also just going to come back to what you want. But I think, like, when you're trying to seek answers that are very personal and outsourcing them to anyone outside of you, like trying to get advice from people, I think that's where a lot can go wrong, because I think everyone's path is so unique, and everyone's strengths and weaknesses are also so unique. So I think
Yeah.
what happens when we kind of outsource the answers, to other people, is that we don't really listen to ourselves, and I think that
Mm.
that's often because we don't trust ourselves. So for example, like, I'll give a really quick, like, story, which
Yeah.
is, for my business, I have a blog, and so, which, and I love writing, but I really don't like the technical aspects of it. I really don't like trying to put a website together, do SEO, all of that. I do not
Yep.
like that. So I was really struggling with traffic, because although I love writing and I think my work is great, my writing is great, I just feel like it's not reaching the audience, because SEO and all this traffic stuff.
Yep.
So recently I came across Substack, and Substack, I was like, oh, this is actually perfect because it gets the work out to readers. It has its own like algorithm type thing. I don't have to do the SEO. The only thing I have to worry about is the writing, which is perfect because that's all I want to worry about anyways.
Right.
But then I think what I did was I went online and I was like, oh, okay, should I do Substack or my own website? So what I did was I outsourced that decision
Yep.
to the internet. I started researching, right? I was like, oh, I should research, and sometimes we frame it as our brains are so good at like making us fools because they're so
Yep.
rational. It's the thoughts are also so rational. It's like, I'm just gonna do research. And of course, like who's gonna say no to that? Research sounds like such a rational thing to do. It sounds like such a
Yep.
practical thing to do. But what that did was, and Substack seemed like a great option to me, but when I started researching it, I think a lot of bloggers and stuff talked about how having your own website is so much better than outsourcing it to another platform, which I totally get, but I think that, and maybe, there's a point in that too, but I think for me and where I was at that point in my journey, where I am right now, maybe that's not the right point. And so it was so funny because later when I hired my business mentor, she really recommended me to join Substack based on, some of the things that we were talking about. And it was so funny because I was like, I was actually going to, but then I didn't because I just, read online that, okay. And then I was like, maybe that's just not a good idea. Anyways, funny enough, I do have a Substack now. I started it, but
Good.
the point of the story is I think it's very easy to outsource our own decisions to not, and I think like there's sometimes there's very small ways in which we don't trust ourselves or we don't even realize it. But I think that if you're doing kind of any of these, especially when you're making decisions and you're outsourcing them, I think it's a very key sign that you lack self-trust, right? And I think there's
Yep.
obviously other ways in which a lack of self-trust shows up, but I think for me, some of these are probably the key ways. And so I think once you're aware of that, that's a great place because again, then we come back to what I talked about again, is you need that embodied awareness, starting to become aware of the moments when
Yeah.
you are not trusting yourself. So again, like it was, I kind of started to become aware of that in the moment where I was like, oh, I'm overthinking this decision because I don't trust myself. And then in that moment, I decided to trust myself, trust that feeling, and trust that inner knowing. And I just made that choice. And again, I think it's really just again about repetition and constantly choosing to trust yourself in your decisions. Again, I will say though that it does become a lot easier when your knowing is clear, So a lot of people will struggle with what I call clarity. But I think a lot of the audience that I listen to, they are quite intuitive. A lot of them kind of already know what they want. I think they just lack it. I think if you're truly someone who is lacking clarity, then maybe, doing some of the work that you do, like asking your angels for help
Yep.
or asking the universe, praying, even reflection, contemplation, a lot of these practices can help to get you clarity. But once you have that clarity, then it's all about trusting yourself and making that decision. But again, yes, it definitely depends on where you are. If you're really at a place where you're not lacking clarity, maybe this isn't for you. Once you have that clarity and that knowing, then it's all about just trusting that inner knowing.
Did your spirit team send you a sign or message this week? I want to hear about it. Submit it through the Soul Self template on my website for a chance to win a free private 15-minute session with me. One listener is chosen every month. Details are in the show notes. Don't miss your chance. Yeah, trusting is it's a double-edged sword, I feel like, because you could say to the moon and back that you trust yourself 100%, but if you're an overthinker like me, you're going to change that decision 5 times before you end up making the decision. But I think you need to start learning to trust. Maybe it's a feeling that you have. For me, it's a gut feeling. If it's a yes, if it's a no feeling, it's in the gut, but it feels differently. Maybe tightness in your chest. There's these little things that your intuition and your angels will do because your angels can't, trespass your free will. They'll give you little nudges here and there. I think I actually posted this morning about not letting fear in your egoic mind take over your life. So what I mean by that is not letting the fear of doing something wrong, not doing the right step, 100 million things, and not letting your overthinking brain take over is don't look at the giant picture. Look at a little tiny piece of the big picture and take a little step towards it. So for me, I get very overwhelmed thinking about the end goal or the end, whatever it is. So for me, I say, all right, what is the next guidance or action step that you recommend that I do? And if it feels aligned, I'll take it. If not, I acknowledge it and kind of let it flow down my imaginary river of thoughts, is what
Yeah.
I call it. Yeah, trust
Yeah.
is something I think you'll work at until you pass, I think, because
Yeah.
we'll always have our brain, and our brain wants to keep us safe and secure without, you know, it's also part of that survival mode that you were talking about. We are surviving even though it feels safe, but it's that fight, flight. It's always going to be within us. We just need to learn how to learn what feels aligned.
Yeah. I love what you just talked about in that process, especially of like taking that next aligned action. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I do agree. Like sometimes you're not gonna know everything that's gonna go or everything that's gonna happen. I think sometimes that's actually a reason why we don't trust ourselves, right? Is because
Yes, we don't know the unknown.
we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know what the outcomes will be. And that's exactly why I talk about shifting your identity from someone who is outcome focused and outcome obsessed to someone who trusts the process and trusts themselves. Because I don't think this is just a one time thing, right? I think this is
Yeah.
really an identity shift that you embody, right? Because I'm also someone who's extremely outcome focused, results focused. I'm like, well, if I don't have this, what does this mean, right? If I don't get
Yeah.
this outcome, what does this mean? So often we assign this meaning, but I think I've also learned that, you really just, you don't need to worry about whether that thing will happen or not because it's not in your control, right? You can't
Yes, that's a big one.
you just need to think about what is in my control, do that thing, and then let it go. And I think that's really what surrendering is, right?
Yeah.
It's doing your karma, doing what you can do, doing what's in your control, and then surrendering it to the universe because the outcome you don't have control over. You can't do anything about that, right? So I think that's really what surrender is, and it's not something that's passive, right? Where you're just sitting
Yeah.
around waiting for something to happen. No, you're taking actions, and then you're letting the universe meet you halfway. So I
Perfect.
love that what you just spoke about was aligned action. 100% agree.
I feel like this whole conversation is aligned action right here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I love that you touched upon surrender because I think that was one of the biggest things I had to learn with this work is to completely surrender to God, universe, stars, my angels on guiding me through my readings, my work, my day to day. So, with the power of surrendering, what do you think? Why do you think that's so hard for people? I think that's another thing that we're just going to have to live with until we leave this earth. But I don't know, and maybe as a life coach, you can put your 2 cents in. Can we completely 100% surrender?
yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on how you define surrender. So, like I said, I think because a lot of people tend to think that surrendering is just this passive act where you just throw your hands up and say whatever's meant to be will be. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people know that phrase, but I think
Yes.
they often use it in the wrong context or misuse it. I think whatever will happen will meant to be will be, but it's not going to happen unless you take actions. For example, I was being nudged towards that life coaching certification, but had I not taken it, I wouldn't be on this path, right? I do think free will is a thing, and I think the universe can definitely continue to nudge you, but I think unless you take action, it's not going to happen, right? I think it really it really comes down to what is your definition of surrender. Like I said, to me, and this is my opinion from
Yeah.
my own journey and what I've learned, is it's really, again, your part, and then trusting that the universe will meet you there. Trusting, and surrendering that, okay, now I've done everything I can. Like, now I leave the rest up to you, God,
Yeah.
source, universe,
Yeah.
whatever. Because and I think it's really hard to do because we live in a world where we expect results almost instantaneously. We expect things
Mm,
instantaneously, right? There's very little delays now in our like social media trains us to want things very quickly, right? Almost everything in our life. And so we don't really have that patience. And I think surrendering, and again, surrendering really requires you to put your trust in the unknown. A lot of us are
100%.
afraid of the unknown. A lot of us are afraid of uncertainty, right? I think that's another main reason why we're afraid or not very good at surrendering, is because we're afraid of uncertainty. We're afraid what's going to happen if I take that leap of faith. We're afraid what's going to happen if I jump in here, into something that I don't know. It's a very valid fear, but I think
Mhm.
that that's often what stops you from surrendering, is that fear of the unknown, that fear of uncertainty. I think really what pushes you forward, because again, this is what I started to see was I was so obsessed with outcomes, so I did everything that I could, like I pushed,
Yeah.
and nothing was happening. Finally, when I surrendered and began to trust, I was like, you know what? I trust the universe and I trust myself. And I think, at that point, like that's when I think my actions shifted from hustling to aligned action, is really when I shifted into surrendering. I think that's when I actually started to see more momentum. I think it's really hard to do because, yeah, of the society that we live in, and also just our own fears of uncertainty and unknown. But I think it's something that's very powerful. And
Yeah.
can we surrender 100%? I'm not sure what that means, but I think absolutely you can surrender. You can learn to cultivate faith in God and source and the unknown. And I think the more you do it, maybe the better you become. Because I guess it's also like a muscle, right? Or something that you just have to do
Right.
consistently. And again, it kind of shifts you. Again, like I think it shifts you as a person, because you become someone that's so anxious and stressed, to finally kind of letting go of that burden of having it all work out, which and I think that attachment to the outcome is also something that
Mm,
prevents you from surrendering, right? Or detaching, is that attachment. When you let go and just be like, okay, I've done my part, this or something better, and just let it go.
perfect. So I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about lots of things today, but I kind of want to bring it up full circle and say, so what would it feel like, or how does it feel like for someone to finally come back home to themselves? How do they know who they are and how that feels?
I love that question. Okay, so for me, I feel like it's, and maybe this is true for other people, is for me, it's an inner knowing, just because that's how my intuition kind of communicates. It's
Yeah.
just that inner knowing, that inner clear knowing of who I am. But I think you'll know because you will feel very clear. You will feel very, just that this feels right. This is kind of who you are. And I think there will be this sense of there'll
Inner
be this
peace,
sense of
maybe?
like, yes, inner peace, calm, but also I think this sense of like power, like being in your power. And I don't think it's a power that comes from like having status or prestige or anything like that. I think it's more of a quiet power, like a power where you're like, where you feel unstoppable, maybe, where you feel
Yeah, they just whispered like feeling radiant, confident.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think radiance is also an amazing word. Confident for sure. A quiet, calm confidence in who you are, feeling powerful because you're connected to yourself, right? So I think, and I think you'll also know, for me, I would say maybe like finally even feeling enough or whole, which I think is a very tough place to get to for a lot of people. And that's not to say that you might not feel enough sometimes. I think sometimes you might, but I think always coming back to a place that you can call home. And again, I think what you maybe you'll know because you won't feel a sense of void or emptiness within yourself. So I think that's also another thing. Like this is also something that I can personally relate to is I no longer feel that sense of emptiness or loneliness that I did because I just feel like I like my own company is not bad, you know? Like I'm content with my own company. Like I genuinely don't need someone. That's not to say I don't need connection. Of course, I love my friends and family and I need social connection, but I think solitude, you feel very comfortable in solitude. You feel very comfortable in your own skin. You feel very comfortable in who you are. And I think you're not afraid to express that to other people. I think that's another huge sign as well, is that you're able to be your most authentic, like you're able to be who you are to like there's no incongruence, you know, you're not putting on these masks. You're not a different
Yeah,
person in with different people. You're the same person. If multiple people come up, they would probably all say the same thing about you because that's how consistent you are, right? Like there's that congruency within yourself and to how you express that to other people. So I think all of that would be
yeah.
signs that
And I think
you're home.
coming from, this more spiritual side where you could feel the energy off of somebody who
Yeah.
is really connected to themselves and
Yeah.
aligned with themselves. So not only as a person outside looking in, your energy looks great, but yourself, you feel great energy
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. I love this conversation so much.
Yeah. I'm curious, what's the energy you're getting from me now?
You are very confident, I would say, when you're doing your coaching part, for sure.
Mm,
Like during this whole podcast, you were very confident in everything you were saying. And I do love that you intertwine your own experiences because I think that's important with coaching, is that everybody's got different experiences,
yeah.
good or bad, that eventually will come to help others.
Yeah.
And I think, you were saying like you could have been an astronaut, but you just had that knowing that that wasn't what you really wanted.
Yeah.
And I think you found what you were hearing. So, Nayati, where can people find you? Any
Yeah.
links? Any freebies? Where can people find you? Because they need to
Yeah.
meet you.
Yes. So they can find me at multiple places actually. I have a blog, so I have my own website, which I guess we will link to. I also have my Substack now, which I will be moving a little bit of stuff over to my Substack, so that's also where you can connect with me. And you can also connect me with on my Instagram, which we will also put. Everything is literally insight.com. So my Instagram handle is philosophical insights. My website is also philosophicalinsight.com or philosophicalinsight.substack.com. So just Google philosophical insight and you'll find me. We'll also share links in the
Yes,
podcast.
I will. Yep. She
Yes.
will give me all the links and I'll put them all in the show notes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for today. This was a very fun and philosophical conversation.
Yeah.
Uh, This was great. I loved it. So
Thank you.
if any of you are looking to meet her, contact her, I'll put everything in the show notes. And I think the overall message that we were talking about today is just kind of trust yourself. Look for that clarity if you don't have it. She's a great source. Simple ways to do that. For me, I find meditation or journaling works for me, automatic writing. find what works for you. I think that's why there's so many modalities here in Earth, is that not one modality fits all.
I agree, for sure.
And I'm going to ask that question to you. What is your best way to connect with yourself or a source?
For me, I would have to say reflection and contemplation. I've found that I'm naturally able to slip into these states of just reflecting or just going within. I think when I'm in that kind of state of mind or state of being, I'm really able to draw insights
Mm,
into whatever trouble or issue that I'm facing, as well as draw out new insights and really connect and feel connected to myself. So that, and also just sometimes even when I'm writing, right? Like sometimes I'm also able to just get certain downloads almost and just
yeah.
write like it, and I think part of that even stems from self-inquiry. So I think self-inquiry is also something that I really resonate with.
Perfect. Thank you so much for today. Lovely souls, have a great day. We'll see you
Thank
next
you
week.
so much for having me, Christina, and thank
Of
you everyone for listening
course.
to the podcast.
Quieter voice, your intuition, your angels, your soul self. It's always there. Keep doing inner work to find it. Today's episode resonated, and hit follow or subscribe so we can keep crossing the bridge together. I'll see you next time.